have right in front of you. Just want to remind everybody that we are focused on the sections in front of us, which is those that are left to be reviewed. Our focus here is, and everyone, please just bear with me here. I think we had a kind of a focus here on the recommendations of, if you have a dissenting opinion or something to add in here, I only ask that you have in mind what you want to add in here or what you would change. And keep in mind that these are recommendations only here. So with that, let's pick up with recommendation 1. And this one focused on Kalia. You will notice in here, and I'm going to note for you anywhere where I've made any changes. In fact, I've tried to note them in green. I've only added in here what Kalia is. And I only did that because I think we noted that anywhere we had abbreviations, we wanted to be specific. Other than that, there was no change in this section on my part. Any part here that anyone would want to revise or change before we move forward? Please feel free to unmute, and if you talk over each other, I can just ask us to take turns. Any comments on recommendation 1? Okay. Thank you. We're going to skip recommendation 2 because we all confirmed this on our October 29th meeting. And we noted that during our last meeting. Recommendation 3, what's different here than the one in front of you is just that I've noted here what POST stands for. POST Commission is the Peace Officer Standards and Training Commission. That's what POST stands for. Here, this recommendation says that it's requesting an annual training, should include additional training for supervisory personnel. There was also a note here by our vice chair that this should be a bit more detailed and or be a separate recommendation. Any additional comments or anything else we would want to add in here, or is this recommendation sufficient on its own?
Madam Chair, the only thing I would add, this is Russ Pulley, is that POST is it's a state-created agency. So I wonder how, if the recommendation is addressing what POST should do, it's kind of outside of our scope of authority. So I'm just curious as to how this recommendation works to the police department.
Very good point, Mr. Pulley. Thank you. So perhaps to Mr. Pulley's point here, we're asking the MMPD to supplement, because we certainly can't. We don't hold any authority to ask the state to, or to recommend the state to do anything. Mr. Pulley, would that be your recommendation, or do you have ideas, or does anyone have thoughts on that, or should we take this out here? Anyone on this?
If the recommendation is to the police department to supplement, then that would be an appropriate way to go about it. It's kind of tough because it's outside of our scope of authority to recommend. That's the only point I would make, is we can't tell POST what to do.
Mm-hmm. So maybe
this
supplement. Go ahead.
This is
I'm just talking.
Tori Johnson. Because this is our accreditation committee. I'm not exactly sure where the POST proposal came from. The idea was to increase, generally have sort of a training track for supervisory personnel. And it was really my recollection, and Lionel is on this as well, is that it was really directed just at the police department. As I say, I don't know where POST came in, but it was just talking about the training academy, and their curriculum should try to be more, to have more annual trainings for supervisors that are directed to supervision rather than other things that would apply to all officers in the department.
Okay, Mr. Johnson. So is your recommendation, Mr. Matthews, feel free to chime in here. Will we be deleting this and then simply adding to recommendation 4 to add on this training here? I'm happy to follow your guidance here.
Well, my situation would be to just eliminate the whole reference to post, and just say that the training academy or the police department or whatever consider adding additional trainings specifically for supervisory personnel on an annual basis or something like that.
Would you mind saying that one more time?
If I'd written it down, adding additional training for supervisory personnel on an annual basis. I think it was our understanding that was not done necessarily on an annual basis. They got some additional training, some of it away from, outside of the training academy and so forth. But we just thought there was more that perhaps could be done there in that regard.
Okay.
Yeah, and just eliminate the reference to post, which I don't think is. I agree with Mr. Pulley. That's not what we're trying to do.
Okay.
And this
Mr.
is
Matthew. Yeah, go right ahead.
This is Chris Jackson. I think it might be helpful to those who read it to understand that the purpose for it would be, or the need or the hope for the additional training would create or provide.
Okay. And got you there. Okay. So we would add an additional clause here to say, in order to, and I believe Mr. Johnson was getting to that there. And Dr. Paxson, I believe you were on discipline here too, or am I wrong? My memory not serving me correctly on that?
No, I was on policy.
You were on?
I was on the policy.
You on the accreditation subcommittee?
No, Captain Oliver was with us.
Okay, gotcha. But Dr. Maybe I got the voices mixed up here. Someone was saying that the good point of, let's put in here the intended impact of this added training here. And I'd love to get some help here on what language we want to add in there.
Well, again, I think the idea was that was really to go along with the fact that we have a lot of policies that are in the manual and so forth, and the idea was to see that it's important that the policies are implemented and correct, and the employees are correctly supervised. I don't know that we had a specific target other than we felt that it seemed in talking to the training academy that they felt that they could use more. They felt they could do more in that regard. They just weren't presently able to do that. But I don't have a specific language. I mean, I understand the point there, but I don't have any specific language about that.
No problem. That's okay. No problem. We can come back to it if need be, but not a problem here in this regard here. Let's. Is there anything else anyone else wants to raise as it relates to recommendation 3? Anyone else? Okay. Now, recommendation 4 speaks to the training academy in the replacing the existing training academy and noting that it is both outdated and too small as it relates to, we're speaking now to infrastructure. Any thoughts or comments here as it relates to recommendation 4? Okay. Recommendation 5 speaks to 8 can't wait. 8 can't, in recommendation 5, by the way, it's kind of a two-parter only, and I don't mean two-parter, but it's kind of split up into 2 small paragraphs here. It speaks first in a bit of an intro space about 8 can't wait launching And then the website being last updated in October of 2020 here in MMPD's policies. And then the recommendation itself is that MMPD should incorporate the policies to fulfill the remaining 4 recommendations of the 8 Can't Wait initiative. And then it specifically speaks to the requirement, the 4 procedures of being updated of requiring de-escalation, duty to intervene, ban shooting at moving vehicles, and requiring comprehensive reporting. Those are the 4 that currently are not included. Any comments here and as it relates to these 4 being included in our MMPD and asking MMPD now to include those 4 in our Nashville includes policies. I'm going to delete this question mark here. Vice Chair Lucas, I know you have this question mark in red here in the duty to intervene. Did you have a question or a comment you wanted to raise as it relates to duty to intervene?
Yeah, for those who are on that committee, what is the 8 Can't Wait? And I apologize because I had actually highlighted that for me to look it up and I overlooked that. But what is the duty to, is that the duty for colleagues to intervene with colleagues? Because I believe that already exists as part of MMPD policy.
Well, I think there's some debate about not only that, but some of the other things as already being incorporated in the current police department policies. I think we discussed this once before. I don't know that it's been definitively determined, but I think we can just simply, I mean, I'm happy with leaving it to the police department to just simply review its policies to determine that it respond to the various points of 8 Can't Wait. And, you know, they may agree with some of them. I mean, you know, for instance, shooting in moving vehicles, they have a slightly different take than 8 Can't Wait. I mean, that may be something that may never get resolved one way or the other. It's still a you know, it shouldn't be done, but I think they've got a limited situation when it's in self-defense of the officer or something like, or another person. In any event, I mean, I'm happy to just simply ask that the police department look at it with that in mind, that we want to adopt as much of 8 Can't Wait as possible. But so that's what I'll say.
Yeah, just to add on to that, and acknowledging that MMPD did review 8 Can't Wait over the summer. They put out a document that showed the changes that they have internally agreed to or committed to as a department. Mr. Oliver, when we were discussing this, Mr. Oliver pointed out that the policy manual itself definitely doesn't reflect some of the same language that's in the document they put out over the summer. And so making sure that language matches policy manual is what the intent is.
Excuse me for my tardiness, everybody, but I wanted to give an update. I did meet with the Assistant Chief, Deputy Chief Hager, shortly after we originally met, and I published all my findings. And I came to discover that, and further looking into their policies, of the 8 Can't Wait, they meet 7 of the 8, and they provided me with documents to show that they met that. And then the one that they did not, and it was for good reason, and I agree with the shooting at moving vehicles on that 8, the banning of shooting at moving vehicles. And the reason why it's not totally banned, and this is, if you go to PERC, which is a national research organization overseeing policing, is that because in terrorist incidents and stuff, they have been proven that if you can stop the vehicle from advancing on large crowds that might try to attack people in that way, you wouldn't want to have such a restrictive policy depending on the circumstance and situation. Like I said, this was more so for terrorism. So research did back that one. So of the 8 can't wait, 7 they are in line with that, and they do have it in their policies. And like I said, the banning from shooting moving vehicles, which I also agree with them, given PERP, is that's for terrorism. And so it's very, very, very rare, but that could be a reason they could.
You know, it's my understanding in the 8 can't wait that terrorism exception is in that one as well.
Yes.
I mean, maybe I misunderstood. It's not an exception to Metro necessarily. It's also listed in 8 can't wait as an exception also, meaning stopping a terrorist in a moving vehicle that's going to, you know, has a bomb and drive into a building or something like that.
Yes, that's correct. It reflects that in 8 can't wait, but their website is a little behind in updating. So if you go and check it out, it wouldn't match. But you're right. They do have documents elsewhere that you can find where that exception is also in 8 can't wait.
You know, I also just wanted to add that I think we have consistently found that the policy manual is not reflecting what their policies actually are, meaning that are either verbal or in their training newsletter or whatever. And maybe just at the very beginning of our document, we should just say there, all of our recommendations should be reflected in the manual. And then that kind of makes sure that all of our recommendations in turn go into the manual. Because I think that is maybe a problem, consistent across the board. I know because of time constraints, we can't go through each one of these and make sure that they're in or not in the manual. But I think most of them are not in the manual of my finding. It might be easier just to put a blanket thing in the beginning that we want all of this reflected in the manual, because if it isn't reflected in the manual, when problems arise, then it's easy to say, well, it's not in the manual. You know, it needs to be.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great point, Ms. Fallon. We've already agreed on another blanket kind of overarching statement as it relates to, you know, I think I can't remember the statement, but we said to make sure that we weren't running against any state laws, if we weren't putting out something that reflected conflict of law. So we can add something like that to just say that, I mean, that ties back to what the mayor was saying as well, that we want everything, he wants to make sure that things remain consistent as well. And I take your point.
All of these recommendations we will put in the manual. So rather than us have to sit here and pick and choose if they're exactly in there or not, it might be easier just to say up front, they should all be in there.
No, I take your point. Any other comments or recommendations as it relates to recommendation 5?
And Ms. Davis, before we go to the next discipline, we just for a clarification on recommendation 4, that the existing training academy refers to the facilities rather than the curriculum. Is that correct?
Yep, and we can type that right in. Yes, Dr. Jackson is absolutely correct. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir. Moving to discipline, recommendation 1 should be on your screen here. We're first speaking about the 45-day time limit from the time an employee requests a hearing until it is conducted. It goes on from there, talks a bit about it should mirror the time given to MMPD to conduct the OPA investigation. Just want to open, is there any conversation here as to changing any of their language or adding to this language, the thorough language in front of you as it relates to recommendation 1? I know it's a little, I want to give everyone a moment. Wait, let me give 10 more seconds here. Recommendation. Okay. Recommendation 2 speaks to Form 108. In the underlined green section is something I've added since Thursday. Over the weekend, I just added in there a descriptor from Form 108. This comes directly from MMPD's description in the from their manual of what 108 is. It's their key document used for collecting of data related to reporting of use of force occurrences. And then for this recommendation, it says that Form 108 should be mandatory despite injury or soft, empty hand contact between officer and any non-MMPD person. Are we in agreement on recommendation 2?
Madam Chair, I've got one little bit of a concern about the wording in recommendation 2. Russ Pulley. The issue around soft, empty hand contact. I believe the definition of soft, empty hand contact is anytime a police officer puts their hands on somebody just to introduce handcuffs or anything. So I'd be a little bit concerned about having to fill out a 108 anytime somebody puts their hands on a subject when there's no injury involved. That seems like a little bit much in terms of paperwork for police officers to do a 108 every time they arrest someone. So that's the one concern I would have about the language in that recommendation.
Mr. Pulley, any other thoughts on this here?
I do.
Yep. Chair Lucas?
Yeah, I had, along with Councilman Pulley, I had some concerns about the way that it was written. It seemed somewhat confusing. Thank you for adding the language about what a 108 is. But I don't think it makes it clear. I'm not sure if the word despite is what is throwing me off, if that's supposed to mean regardless of injury. But my understanding is that Form 108 is used whenever there is a use of force, whether or not that's soft, empty hand contact could mean use of force, like if you're just sort of twisting somebody's arm behind their back. It could be, I agree with Councilman Pulley that just anytime you touch a suspect is not really a use of a 108. But I just wasn't sure what that language meant, despite injury or soft, empty hand contact, because that sounds like that's the time when you would have to do a 108, as if there is an injury or soft, empty hand contact. So I just think we need to be really clear about what we're talking about here, is that it doesn't just have to be when someone is shot or someone is, it's whenever there's use of force. So we just need to go back to whatever that continuum is and say that, starting here, you need to do a 108. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yep. No, so how would you reword it? Yeah. So how would you reword it? Yeah.
Yeah. I say that MNPD's key document used for the collection of data related to reporting of use of force occurrences is the Form 108. This form should be mandatory in the event of injury or soft, empty hand. Let me think what the right word is.
I wouldn't mind also suggesting that we just define soft, empty hand contact.
Yeah.
Why don't we just define it instead of all of us wondering what it is? And there must be a body of information that we can pull that official definition from. I mean, maybe for now, Ms. Davis, we just put in parentheses, define empty hand contact and pull it from resources we already have. I don't know the definition off the top of my head, but there's probably a legal definition of soft, empty hand contact, and then we don't have to have people guess what that means. Because I mean, my concern is we know that it's used for any kind of those jiu-jitsu moves that they talked about that can actually cause very serious injury.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So go right ahead. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
No, that's it.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Yeah.
There's I believe page 715. Here's a way, this doesn't speak to the definition of soft empty hand control, but the manual currently reads that personnel should report all use of force incidents. However, no MNPD Form 108 is required when official presence, verbal direction, and or soft empty hand control is used by the employee and there is no injury or allegation of injury. So the soft empty hand control was defined for me by police administration as literally touching the person in any way, placing handcuffs on the person, escorting a prisoner by holding their arm, putting a hand on their head to prevent them from hitting it while getting into the back of a police car. So I don't know that that definition is in any kind of official document, though.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So the definition.
Well, in that case, I think we should seek a definition of it, because I also know that it can include strangulation and pressure points, and those can kill somebody. You can kill somebody with their hands. Mm-hmm. So strangulation, meaning pressure point to the carotids, can cause anoxic brain injury. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I'm not comfortable with not defining that. I mean, I agree with Mr. Pulley. Sure, soft hand can include those things, but I know from my work from going to the training academy, they defined it in the training academy much, much more broadly than that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, and it does include strangulation.
Yeah, I mean, you need to definitely, I would certainly think that that would fall within what they're doing, what they have now. But I agree that a clarification on what that means so that you could differentiate between those incidents where it's appropriate to have a 108 and not having a 108 on those issues where you're merely touching a person to apply a handcuff or something, or escorting a person by holding their arm.
Yeah, and Mr. Pulley and Mr. Bilal, I think and Vice Chair Lucas, I think you're all coming together here on an important part here. Maybe what's missing here is that it's not defined in the manual. And that we need to recommend that MNPD concretely define what is soft, empty hand contact, so that once it's clearly and concretely defined, we know exactly what falls within that space. And could we agree?
Yes, and it absolutely needs to be defined, because when you use pressure points on carotids, it can cause an anoxic brain injury. And 50 to 75% of the time, there is no physical injury to an anoxic brain injury. There is no bruising. You have to truly, be dead to determine if there's an anoxic brain injury, because you have to do an autopsy of the brain, because that's where the injury is. And so it's affected in memory and all of those kind of things that are not assessed as injury even by the victim themselves, or much of the time. And I feel like there is not a clear understanding of strangulation in the police force. And especially because, as we know, when we were there, I asked the question in the training session, is there anything that you would like to bring back that is currently not allowed? And that was one of the things that was said that they would like to bring back, because it immediately brings an individual to their knees because it is an anoxic brain injury, to be honest. And I'm pretty strong on this one. We need a definition. We do, because I think soft tissue, I think this soft hand is usually referenced the way that Congressman Pulley is referencing it, but in reality, I can promise you that the pressure points to the carotids is used a lot. And because you can't see the injury, it is a serious injury that is often hidden.
Gotcha. No, I hear you, Ms. Bilal. Okay. Is there anyone feel differently about here? Just this 1.5, and by the way, they won't be numbered, so these numbers will disappear. But just for our purposes, I think we should state out first the recommendation that we define soft empty hand contact and then include the recommendation 2. Are we in agreement there? Or does anyone rather feel differently? You don't have to state that you agree. Just let me know if you feel differently.
My only addition to that would be if soft empty hand contact includes this wide gamut of things that are the example that Ms. Bilal just articulated, and just simply touching a suspect, then yeah, clear definition and a separation of what rises to the level of an offense that not an offense, but a tactic or a technique that would warrant a 108 and one which doesn't. So I think that's we got to come up with a wording where we can separate all of those. If that makes any sense, what I said.
Yeah, I think we can add that. What warrants the filing of a Form 108? Yeah, can we add that? Right, that's clause here. Councilman Pulley, what do you think?
State that again, Madam Chair.
I just added that little clause here, and what warrants the filing of a Form 108. So as they're teaching what is qualifies as soft empty hand contact, I think that needs to be added in. I think you raise a great point of what warrants the filing of a Form 108. They should be taught together.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, that works.
Well, and specifically, I think soft empty hand to the neck or head is really the key areas that cause anoxic brain injury.
Right. And yeah. And
I think we're going to be able to I think we'll be able to differentiate between, like what Councilman Pulley said, which is, the officer placing their hand on the suspect's head to prevent them from hitting it on the car, versus some sort of use of force to get a subject under control. I think we'll be able to find a definition that makes that clear.
Okay. Right. Thanks, everyone. I agree. Thank you. With that, Jennifer, I think we've taken care of 1.5, 2 as well. Can move to 3 here, unless I hear any objections. Recommendation 3 here speaks to the clear definition of broad terms like, broad serious bodily injury and injury. So the recommendation is asking that MNPD develop a clear definition for broad terms like serious bodily injury and injury for determining disciplinary actions. And it also states that any hospitalization of an individual should automatically warrant removal from the line of duty and field assignments until formal investigation has been completed. And I believe we say until a formal. Any thoughts, comments here on this recommendation, recommendation 3?
Yes, I have one comment about the last line with respect to hospitalization. I think that needs to be clarified a little bit because having personally experienced this, both investigating civil rights matters for the Bureau and being a part of some of these things when I was in uniform, there are occasions where suspects or people who you have in custody will inflict injuries on themselves and things of this nature. So I would hate to have a police officer removed from duty pending an investigation on something like that. So maybe a little more clarity rather than an automatic removal from duty when someone's hospitalized.
Thank you, Councilman Pulley. Any comments or reactions to that? Any thoughts on how we could maybe broaden or maybe make the language a bit more specific? Or is there comfort here in the current language?
Maybe a little clause that any hospitalization that occurs as a result of any action by the police officer should automatically warrant removal. Something like that would work for me.
Well, this Tory Johnson, I agree with Councilman Pulley on that, but I also think we need to define hospitalization. Does that mean taking them to general hospital just to have them checked out, or does it mean they're actually in there for some extended period of time, any period of time? I don't know. I mean, I just think that because I think there could be instances that you'd have somebody basically at a desk over something that doesn't amount to anything, but on the other hand, I think it's a fine policy otherwise.
Yep. No, I take your point, Mr. Mason. Yeah, I'm sorry, go right ahead. I got someone else. I thought I did. Yeah, I got a bit more bass in my voice than usual. I thought I sounded like somebody else for a second. But I take Mr. Johnson's point, and I think similarly, it would be great if we could add something in here about perhaps if it's maybe it's extended hospitalization. Mr. Johnson, what do you think? Maybe is it more than 1 day? Does it sound respectable, or is it 2 days?
No, I mean, I don't. That I think is the difficulty we have trying to write this like we are. No, I just think there is some line between it's serious enough that something action ought to be taken, and when it's more of a precaution or something like that. I don't know what I'm not here to tell you I know what the definition should be.
I don't know. Yeah, no, I'm not saying I do either. But I had similar thoughts, is what I'm saying. Too.
I'm just not exactly sure how that would be interpreted. Would that mean just simply taking somebody to general hospital at their request, which is I think part of the policy can be, and it's really relatively minor or doesn't exist at all, or something that's considerably more serious.
Well, what if it was involuntary hospitalization?
I think what Tori's trying to get at here is that the police can, if it's a scratch, you could find yourself at the hospital checking out subject, because the sheriff's department's not going to accept the prisoner in many cases unless they've been medically cleared if something like this happens. So if you take them to the hospital, have checked out, and then they let them go, then does this really rise to the level of a kind of hospitalization that warrants what we're talking about here? And I agree, it's going to be tough to come up with language to really draft that. And they've also they take intoxicated people to the hospital for whatever reason, blood tests and things of this nature. So anyway, I don't know how to word it either.
Yeah. I do agree, though, it's too important to just leave as is without a solution here.
May I make a suggestion?
Would we want to say serious bodily injury? Any hospitalization of an injury that occurs and results in serious bodily injury? I mean, that's clear. Maybe we want it broader than that, but.
And if you just said serious bodily injury at the hand, well, we've already put that at the hand of the police officer in here. So. Well,
I think we need to tie it to use of force. I think that's what the point of the recommendation is should an officer use excessive force on someone, and or appropriate level of force on someone and it results in a hospitalization, that they should be removed from duty and this situation, a formal investigation should be completed. So I think tying it all back to use of force is what's important here. It may be an appropriate level. I mean, a formal investigation may show, no, that was an appropriate level of force. But whenever it's a use of force, which ties it back to the Form 108,
I think we're already there. I think what we're trying to figure out is what the definition of hospitalization is.
Right.
So we don't want to, somebody.
I think hospitalization is admission. I mean, just from my understanding from psychiatric hospitalization is that being seen in an ER is not hospitalization. Hospitalization is when a patient's admitted to the hospital.
That works for me. That works for me.
So any admission to the hospital, if that makes it clearer.
Hospital admission that results from use of force. That is connected to use of force.
Correct.
Because I think I like that language in there, Ms. Lucas, only because I think often when you're dealing with intoxicated individuals, they often do get hurt because they fall badly, potentially.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So let me ask you all, based on all the things that we're sharing here, Vice Chair Lucas, and what you shared too, what's missing from this highlighted sentence? I'm trying to make sure I'm collecting everyone's input here. Is there anything
I would say in the event that a use of force results in an admission to the hospital.
But what you're saying, like, where would you put it and what would you be taking out? Just so I can make sure I'm including it.
I am rewording that highlighted part.
Oh, okay. Then let me just go down here and, go ahead.
Okay. In the event that a use of force results in the admission to the hospital, admission to the hospital. The officer should be removed from the line of duty, and then the rest of that sentence. So, and field assignments, ... can go at the end. How does that feel to the committee?
So we would be substituting the second sentence of recommendation 3 for the highlighted sentence in front of you.
This is Torrey Johnson again. I'm in favor of that. The only thing that concerns me is just the length of time that, I mean, it's really something that would be addressed to the police department, but I just don't know. I mean, some of these things I think could be pretty quickly maybe determined that it was not a problem, or, it was an appropriate use of force. I don't know. I'm just wondering. I mean, generally, I think this is an improvement over what we had. And I guess I'm okay with it. I just do think it could result in someone being off for a period of time longer than necessary.
Mm-hmm. Any other thoughts, or is there a general consensus here?
My only thought as it relates to that is he is absolutely right. One of the things that we don't want to do is unnecessarily remove officers from the street for undue periods of time when we're already short-staffed as it is. However, the only thing that gives me comfort in doing it the way we're doing it is we're basically putting it to the lap of the police department. and they are well aware of those constraints. And this tells them what our concern is, and I think they could probably come up with their own policy, taking into consideration all of those things that Mr. Johnson just articulated. So that's kind of where I land.
Okay. Thank you. Any other thoughts here?
Yeah, I think it's very important to understand, though, that it is reasonable to say if a suspect is hospitalized, meaning that is admitted to the hospital with injuries directly related to a use of force, that is a very serious occurrence and needs to be investigated. My understanding is that this was just, again, one of those, like, putting it into policy, what is probably already happening in practice, is that that's very serious. If someone has to be hospitalized directly related to the use of force, that needs to be looked into. And
it's currently being looked into. Those things don't escape them without investigation. So.
Exactly. So I really feel like this is one that's just sort of codifying what's already in practice. So I'm not really sure that it's not already being done. Therefore, I don't know why there would be any objection to including it as the official policy.
Sounds like we're in the similar neighborhood in the space, and I think both Vice Chair Lucas's, your comment there, and also Councilman Pulley's space that MMPD would work expeditiously for this formal investigation to take place. And also we, of course, MNCO and their activation here too, in the space as well. It sounds like we have a general consensus here too, in comfort with the alternative language here, the substitution of the language. So I'm revising the language here because it seems like we're comfortable here. I'm going to move to recommendation 4, but we can certainly come back to 3 without a problem if folks still have thoughts here. There is a section here, and we can. I'm actually, my recommendation here for 4 is to take this section C part off. I don't think we need to reference section C at all. Instead, I think we need to delete it, and we can bring it back if anyone disagrees. We have it all in front of us, and just say all firearm discharges. And we can start it another kind of way here, but instead there's no need to reference that, especially if we don't know what we're relating back to. But this subcommittee can correct me too. But are there any thoughts or questions or additions anyone wants to add to recommendation 4? Let's begin there.
Madam Chair, I think section C comes from this. The citation is 11.10.180 section C, which is found on page 718. So that's what that, I'm assuming that's what the reference to section C is. I didn't write this one myself.
Okay.
But I've got, I have one, a little bit of a concern, because it's got 3 sections in here. 2, 3, and 4 deal with all firearms discharges. Some are accidental, but I think it's important to note that negligent discharges are always fully and completely investigated and almost always lead to discipline or remedial training. So I question whether it needs to go to a force review board, but I'll certainly abide by the will of the committee here, just so that we understand where it's going now. All firearms discharges as a result of negligence or accidental discharges occurring during the application of some kind of force are investigated by the affected employee's chain of command. And, the commander then forwards the written report to the chief of police. Discharges only are presented to the force review board when the employee's chain of command determines that it's in the best interest of the department. So, I just put that out there for discussion. If it's the will of committee that this is adopted, I certainly won't stand in the way of consensus.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman Pulley. I appreciate that background. It's helpful information. I'd love to hear from others. if we are in support of, if there's support to include this recommendation. Just if we could just succinctly say yes or no, unless you have additional support of why you want to add here. So I do want to be mindful of the time, as we only have 40 minutes to get through the rest of this. Anyone else who wants to add anything else? Anyone who disagrees with including recommendation 4 or would like to add or take away from the language here?
You know, I'm sorry, I don't exactly understand it.
Okay.
I mean, I know there's a reason it's in here. Is it because it's,
Yeah.
Is it because of abuse of it? Is that why?
Yeah, anyone from the subcommittee want to speak to it? This is for our discipline subcommittee. And I can pull out my original document too.
Is Mr. Sherrill on the call? This may be one of his.
I don't believe he is. I can't see my full, I don't have the full list.
And it doesn't here has to be treated as if they resulted in injury to prevent or decrease the likelihood of it happening. So I'm just, to me, I understand it being in there if it in turn causes an injury, but if it has to be reported to the Force Review Board and it does not cause an injury, I'm just questioning, is there another reason that it's in here? I'm sure there is. I just, it seems confusing to me.
I can't speak to it, an officer on the committee. This was one that I believe Mr. Sherrill put forward. So you'd have to ask him what the purpose is. My thoughts are, in looking at accidental discharges that I've seen in the past, they're just somebody being negligent. Sometimes it's a bullet that's left in the gun while you're cleaning it goes into the floor. Sometimes it goes into the officer's hand. I've seen that happen. You know, it's negligent, it's wrong, it should be investigated. And the ones that occurred, my understanding, are fully and completely and almost always lead to discipline. So I just wonder why it's necessary to send them all to the Force Review Board.
Okay. I do see Mr. Sherrill in space. Sir, are you, can you hear us? Yes, sir.
Yes. You know, it's in this Monday, you know, them work days.
Yeah, I hear you. No, it's okay.
Yes, I mean, I think all of them should be, we put that forth because I think everything should be investigated. I think that's a way of the community to instill that trust back in the community. There's been a lot of issues with the MMPD not being forthcoming with information. And I mean, just look at what's been going on when the community knows what's the facts of the case, or just, you know, are able to feel like it's transparent, then, you know, it provides a more positive atmosphere. And so that's why I said that, you know, and you got to understand, we're trying to reestablish trust. The trust is totally lost across the country as it pertains to police and communities. So I just think, you know, that'd be a way for the MMPD to be held accountable for everything, and then the community to believe it and be understanding about it, and that's why we put that forward.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Bilal, any questions on your end?
Well, it looks like it is investigated. It, from what Mr. Pulley's saying, it's investigated. It's just a matter of, should it be investigated by the Force Review Board?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's kind of the question. You know, we definitely want to increase transparency, of course. But do we want the Force Review Board to be the entity that looks at this? That to me is kind of the part that made me feel like when I read this, well, what is this really saying? What's happening behind this? Meaning, is this being used as an excuse to actually, you know, be using use of force and getting away with it? I mean, that's what, when I read that, if that isn't the case, I don't want that to appear that way, because when I read that, I'm like, oh, what's really happening with this? And I don't think from what Mr. Pulley's saying is the case. It really is, in most cases, negligent, and no one is getting hurt except maybe the officer. And it is being investigated, and we should say it should be investigated. It's just, for me, should it be investigated by the Force Review Board when there isn't an injury in the community?
I'm in agreement with what Ms. Bilal said.
That's fine. That's fine. I can live with that one.
What is the actual entity that reviews it? If it's not Force Review Board, Mr. Pulley, who does review it?
Thank you. It's reviewed. I'll read you the sections in the policy. And so it's any firearm discharge as the result of negligent or accident, unless occurring during the application of some type of force, shall be investigated and reviewed by the affected employee's chain of command. So the involved employees, components, commanding employee will review the circumstances and make a conclusion as to whether the weapon discharge was within departmental policy. The component commander will then forward a written report to the chief of police through his or her chain of command, detailing his or her conclusion. If the component commander reasonably believes that the employee's actions may have been outside the parameters of the department's policies, procedures, or directives, a recommendation regarding remedial training and or corrective disciplinary action shall be included. And the last section, discharges under this section will only be presented to the Force Review Board when the employee's chain of command determines such review to be in the best interest of the department. That's the way the policy is written. So it goes up through the supervisory chain of command. They conduct the investigation and mete out the discipline the way I understand it is now. And from talking with the police department on the realities of how many of these get and you know what the result of all these are, it's always fully and completely investigated and almost always lead to discipline and remedial training.
So just to chime in now, do you see how they can be a problem? And that was my point for putting that in. If you're in the community, how was that establishing? If I'm your chain of, if I'm your commander, and you've been on the force 4, 5, 6 years, we've developed some sort of relationship. Okay, how is it? It's almost impossible to not be biased in a situation if we've established a relationship. That again, there's no way for that situation to be looked at transparently from a community's perspective. So it's all up to the chain of command. It's all up to the commander. He could say, look at it and say, hey, I know Mr. Pulley. He's a decent guy. I'm pretty sure he didn't mean that way. There's no need for me to move forward with this. That's the issue. So that's why I recommended the Force Review Board.
Well, that'd be a concern if there weren't, if the discipline weren't really meted out. And I think historically, I understand there was a study conducted that shows that our police department really beats out discipline at a little bit higher level than most do. But let me also, let's see here. I believe, let me put the composition of the Force Review Board before you. So the Force Review Board is composed of the deputy chiefs over the officers unit, the director of training, attorneys from the Department of Law, and the director of the COB, and there may be some others on there, but that's who composes the Force Review Board.
But this is Torrey Johnson again. I mean, we're not talking about a use of force here, isn't it? I mean, these are the ones, I mean, what I always saw it was where some officer, dropped the gun or did something, off at the station house or something like that, where it was really an accidental discharge.
That's all.
Not in the community, not as part of an arrest, not as part of an incident with an outside or a third party. I thought it was just all. I mean, I thought what we're talking about is where the firearm discharges because of some officers, either accident or negligence in and around, I mean, just at the station house or his car or something like that.
That's correct.
So if that's what we're talking about, then that's understandable.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's what we're talking about. Not if it involves a third person, or this happened during a pursuit or the arrest or something, then that's a whole. Then I think that the way it stands right now is it goes to the Forest Review Board. But this is more where the guy is, gets his gun and slips out of his hand or something, and it shoots a door or something.
That's right.
Yeah. Mr. Cheryl, is that a sufficient explanation on your part?
It is.
Okay. I was going to just liken it. Go ahead. I cut you off.
No, I appreciate the clarification on that.
No, thank you. I was just going to liken it in just good Nashville terms as a little bit of a Barney Fife reference of his like one bullet and shooting his own self in the butt kind of thing. If that makes sense for folks. That might not land for everybody, but I take Mr. Johnson's. That's going to land for some people, not everybody. But it sounds like we're comfortable deleting the recommendation for it. Does that work for everyone? And Mr. Cheryl, does that principally work for you? Is that okay?
Yes, under those circumstances.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to move us to data here, recommendation 1. You'll notice I did change the title here back to what it was listed when we did our preliminary recommendations. And this is what the subcommittee also you were listed under. Recommendation 1 is about the all points bulletin, that if an officer uses an APB that as a justification for stopping or arresting a suspect, that officer must include the details of the APB or the DEC, the Department of Emergency Communication, in their notes or report. Any comments or comments are here on this recommendation, recommendation 1? Recommendation 2 speaks to. Yeah.
Can I just a quick question is there any delineation where an APB comes out over the radio or whether it's shared and roll call? Because obviously anything that comes over the air will be documented for all records. I guess I didn't understand the issue, what has created an issue where this rule or recommendation should go into effect.
Mr. Robinson, just before you're on mute, I want to make sure I was clear on your question. You were asking what circumstances would have warranted the need for this recommendation? Right. I think let me just open it up to the subcommittee before I answer here. Anyone just want to succinctly answer there?
I can.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. I believe that the concern here was that very often people are stopped and arrested because the officer says they meet the description of a suspect in an APB. And in some instances in the country, they have gone back and reviewed the APBs and shown that there was absolutely no APB out on a suspect that looked anything like the arrested person. And so it's an accountability measure to make sure that if you use an APB as a justification for stopping and or arresting someone, that you can prove that there was an APB out for someone with that description.
Thank you, Vice Chair Lucas. Mr. Robinson, does that clear answer your question, rather?
Okay. I think if that's the recommendation, do we suggest how much detail? I guess that's one question I have, that the officer must include the details of the APB communication in their notes.
I think that just included any sort of reference information. It doesn't necessarily have to include the entire APB, but if there's a number or anything associated with it, or the time that, like you just said, like, did they hear this in the morning at the station? Did they hear it come over the radio? Just something so that it can be linked back to that APB.
Would and perhaps instead of saying the details, maybe say must reference the APB?
Sure.
So that
or include identifying information or something. Yeah. That makes sense.
Okay. Because that's going to identify the APB, I think, in the information, and if they're lying about it, then, and there was no APB, then it's going to come back on them. So, okay. Thank you, Ms. Lucas.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Robinson.
Sure, no
Thank you, Ms.
problem.
Lucas. Recommendation 2 speaks to the request that Mayor Cooper and MMPD should meet with community organizations, and we list out a few here to convene a task force to implement the CAHOOTS model of mental health crisis response, and it requests the date of October 2021. Any thoughts or recommendations as to recommendation 2 of the data? Subcommittee. Recommendation 3. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, this is Torrey Johnson. The only issue I have is specifically tying it to a task force to implement the CAHOOTS model. It seems to me we've already talked about the fact that there are several different ways of responding, and I don't know that we should be dictating one versus the other, as opposed to just simply saying we all recognize that there needs to be anything we can do to improve the way the police department deals and the assets they have to deal with people with mental health issues. I think convening the task force, I think all that's great. If this is a recommendation though, but I just think we ought to, for my purposes, I think we ought to just say, take a look at anything that's out there, as opposed to, because I don't think I know that some people feel strongly about this particular model, but I don't know that we as a group have done the kind of research that says we ought to do one versus the other.
Okay. So Mr. Johnson makes a good point here. If we were to take out the CAHOOTS model and say to implement a mental health crisis response, and if we put in parentheses, if we just say a mental health crisis response and offer no example there, then that task force would start to explore on their own, and likely would, of course, explore CAHOOTS and others, and would probably, of course, go back and look at our some of our preliminary testimony. Are we comfortable with that approach?
Or can we say the CAHOOTS model or other acceptable mental health crisis response model?
All right.
Okay.
Can I speak to this one, Ashley?
Sure, yeah.
Pardon me. So the Communities Task Force, which is headed up by Judge Blackburn and Sharon Roberson, are making a specific, I believe, recommendation about the CIT model. I don't know, for those of you who were in our presentation from Dr. Valier, he presented information on the continuum of the models. And there's the continuum from the CIT model, which is the crisis intervention team model, or the Memphis model, which is officers being dispatched, all the way through a co-response model, which is what we heard from Ms. Brock from the Mental Health Co-op about, all through the CAHOOTS model, which is entirely community-based, where police are not present. my understanding from the community and community organizations that have addressed this issue, anything from the Nashville People's Budget Coalition to Gideon's Army, who we heard from Ms. Fatuga and Mr. Turnley, through community surveys, through the work that we've done with NOAA, is that the community has made it abundantly clear that they would like a non-officer presence response model to mental health. And I think that that is why the recommendation is that we implement the CAHOOTS model. Now, if that's something that the committee doesn't feel comfortable recommending at this time, I understand you might want to convene a task force to implement reforms to the MNPD mental health crisis response. But the community has been trying to communicate clearly on this issue. It's part of the reason why I think we were assigned to this task or to this policing commission and to this committee, is that they would like a voice, and their voice has said resoundingly that they want a non-police response to mental health crisis, except in those cases where police are required. And CAHOOTS last year fielded 24,000 calls, and only 1% of those calls required backup from police. I feel like our trip to the academy, that we heard very clearly from the officers that the dealing with these cases is very difficult. They're not trained for it. Transporting patients to, whether or not that's the ER to be medically cleared or to the mental health co-op, and then having to supervise those patients, and not just in Nashville. I mean, I believe the officer at the academy mentioned having to transport someone to Chattanooga even. It goes right back to Councilman Pulley's concerns about, do we want to pull police into situations that they don't need to be involved with and take them away from their other law enforcement duties? And I would say that this is the exact place where we could really make up some time, and especially since they're short-staffed. And
Yes.
And so I really want to advocate for this model to be included in the language. If you want to say "and others," I'm not going to object to that, but I just want to let the committee know why it's so important that we really, really advocate for a win-win here with the department, freeing them up to do their job, and also really listening to what the community is saying, because like Mr. Sherrill was saying, we have got to rebuild trust between the community and the department. And I think that this would be an excellent way to do that, is this mental health crisis response that does not involve officers.
Thank you, Mr.
Just jump in here for a second. This is John.
Yeah.
So I think that there is a clear agreement that we want to have some kind of co-response model. I do think that it is clearly within the community's committee sort of purview to talk about how to serve specific and vulnerable populations. I know that they have spent a lot of time working with the Behavioral and Wellness Advisory Council and talking with the Mental Health Co-op about this. So I would just say that, in terms of how police interact with vulnerable populations, this seems to me to be clearly a community committee area, not so much a policy committee area.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it. So everyone, we are running out of time here. I've put together here in front of us something that kind of meets us in the middle here. So we are not landing on what we're saying is put down in the middle. There's a committee, as John has enunciated and clearly stated, that will already put very squarely forward what they have recommended. They put a lot more time in than we have. This simply says it's a model similar to CAHOOTS by this date. And I recommend that we move forward with that, because what we need to give time to is the use of force, excessive force pace here. Is there anything anyone needs to say on this that is just very much focused discussion on recommendation 2, so that before we can move to 3 and 4 on this?
The only thing I just wanted to add, I wouldn't want to put anything in here that conflicts with the community component, but I agree with Ms. Lucas that I like the CAHOOTS model, and maybe just by the fact that we mentioned it, it might be something that they would consider by at least knowing the name of it, and it's a model that we're familiar with, that we like. And then an alternative, even in the CIT model, you can still use community members. You know, you don't have to adopt any of those three models in a purist form. And so what we may want to add, just to protect this community component that is so important to us, is to say, and regardless of the model that is selected, one that includes community representatives.
Right. Thank you, Ms. Bilal. In fact, there's a chair vice chair meeting coming up where we'll come together and discuss these conflicts. So we'll have an opportunity to do just that for those overlaps. But I appreciate those points too. Let's move to recommendation 3. I've reworded this only to make sure it's a little bit more clear on the screen. So it's a little bit like ABC lined up there. That's the only difference there. And I did line up the language a little bit in the intro. It just states, instead of leading with MNCO, it just leads with MMPD because we need to offer direction there. Any thoughts here, questions as it relates to recommendation 3, saying that MMPD should give access to MNCO so that they can do a review for the request listed there in A, B, and C. Excuse me, A, B, and C.
Can you I'm on my phone and I can't see what's on the screen.
Yeah, I can read it for you. MMPD should support and extend full access to MNCO for the review of A, requests for the receipt of weapons and vehicles under the 1033 program, B, requests for grant funding from the federal government that will be used to purchase military-style weapons and vehicles, and C, proposals to purchase military-style weapons and vehicles from vendors. All this is about militarization, military equipment.
Ms. Davis, I cannot support recommendation 3 because I don't know that we are in the business of recommending that a department who is getting equipment, be it military or whatever. I would hate to handcuff the department in any way that feels like it needs, whether it's weapons or vehicles, and that we suggest that they seek review and approval from the MNCO before they get any
purchase it.
Yeah, I don't think that's really the purpose of our committee.
Well, Mr. Robinson, can I ask you, because I read this similarly, I think where the rubber hits the road for me is not the purchasing of it, although I think there's a conversation for another day. It's really around how are they using it? Are they bringing military grade, weapons and vehicles into our neighborhoods, and how are they using them? Are they using it on a September day or something where it shouldn't be used? So I could see MNCO reviewing it on an annual or biannual basis, and maybe it's not used at all for any reason, right? And then that raises other questions. But I think that's where I would maybe reword the recommendation. How does that strike you and others, I guess, is my question.
Well, I know I'm looking at this more from a terrorist standpoint, and having the vehicles and the weapons to address a terroristic action. And I think that the issue of taking it into neighborhoods, I think that's where having a new chief of police is going to consider those choices, and moving to more of a community-based policing is going to move the department away from running around in military type vehicles. unless you've got a hostage situation, and if I'm the hostage, I don't care if it's a tank or what. If it gets me out, then I'm going to be glad that they've got the equipment that they use. So I can't support recommendation number 3. I'll let other people chime in.
Got it. So other questions here. We're not talking about recommendation 3 in its current format. My question here is there support for rewording this to state that MNCO would be reviewing the use of military, the military weapons and vehicle, MMPD's use of military weapons and vehicles in other forms, other supplies on an annual basis.
And I just want to clarify for people before they answer that question from Ashley is that I know Mr. Robinson used the term review and approve. That language is not in there. It says for the review of. So it's just wanting another set of eyes on what is happening in terms of these programs. And they can offer recommendations themselves. But again, none of this, we don't have authority, nor does MNCO have authority, but it is always helpful for the community to have another set of eyes to know what is, how are resources being allocated. So I just want people to keep that in mind as they answer Ashley's question.
You know, I think I have the same question that I had before, which is why is this in here? Is it in here because there has been misuse of these type of vehicles against civilians who are not the drug cartel and are not terrorists, and, you know, are these military vehicles that are being used for, you know, stop and arrest or whatever? Because when I read this, that's what it makes me think. It makes me think, oh, well, is this in here because they are doing that? And if they're not,
no, I think that's a great question, Ms. Ball.
Not doing that, I'm not sure why this is in here. That's my own.
No, that's a great question, but this year is a good example of how military style, grade supplies were used against protesters in great response. We saw on live television.
You mean the tear gas? You mean in Davidson County or across the country?
Well, I'm saying across the country. I'm not just picking on in Davidson County, but I'm saying we've seen it, and we're responding both nationally and internationally for that matter, and whether it was weapons or otherwise. So I can't speak for this space, and if we're saying comfortably,
are we doing this in Davidson County? In Davidson County, are we using this type of vehicles for civilian that are non-drug cartel, non-terrorist, or because I'm not sure if it's fair to put that in there if we're not. And I think we have to be specific to Davidson County because that's what these recommendations are for.
Well, in this current, any other comments or thoughts here?
I think they make great points. This would fall under that category of one where I think we need to vet this against the state law as it relates to what we have the authority to, the MNCO does have the authority to do. But I think Mr. Robinson, Ms. Bilal make great points as it relates to this.
Thank you, Mr. Puller. Any other thoughts here on this?
I think it's important to remember that we're also trying to prevent things from happening. It's not a question of whether or not MNPD has necessarily, misused military style weapons. I think it is trying to change culture and change policies and practices so that things that like what happened in Portland do not happen here in Nashville. And I don't think it's fair to say that a change in leadership, again, going back to what we keep coming back to, is that we need to have these things in policy. And I believe it was Ms. Bilal who said, it is just not a realistic expectation that we're going to be able to go and evaluate every single thing that is happening against what's in the manual and what's in, practice. So having another set of eyes and just having MNCO review it and flag something that may be problematic seemed like a pretty straightforward thing. And so I'm just really confused as to why there would be opposition to this. It didn't say MNPD should discontinue anything. It doesn't say they should stop doing anything. It just says that the militarization of police is a big problem throughout this country. Let's prevent that from happening here And what would be a good way to do that? Well, we already have a oversight agency. Why don't we ask them to just keep an eye on that and let the community know if they flag any concerns? There may not be any. So I'm not really sure why we wouldn't want to include that. Militarization is a serious issue in policing in this country.
Well, I think maybe we just say it that way then. We say that we see militarization as a national issue that has been used as an excessive use of force, and we do not recommend that military-style weapons or vehicles be used for civilian, however we want to word it, something like this, be upfront about what we really don't want them to do. Because when I read this, it makes me think something else is happening that isn't. And I'm not sure if we can do it either. So let's just say what our fear is, that we are seeing this national trend. We don't want it to happen in Davidson County, and we recommend that type of weaponry not be used, against civilians.
I would, my preference would be that we try not to overreach or over legislate and let the department handle this organically based on how the new chief wants to run their community-based policing program. That's my thought. And if you want to just put a sentence in there that says, this committee encourages the MNPD to review and contemplate the effect on the community as a whole before obtaining a more military style vehicles or employing military style vehicles.
Hello. This is Dwight Lewis. I just wanted to say I agree with Ms. Lucas with what she said as regarding the proposal. And Mr. Robinson, one of the things that I've been thinking is that I thought one of the reasons for this commission was to come up with some recommendations and to have them finished in time that we could possibly show them to the finalists for the new chief. And if that person, whoever that person is, they said, well, I can't agree to any of these. Well, maybe that person shouldn't come on board. Not to have that person come on board and then have him or her say, I can't agree with any of these, or I don't like these proposals. We want to put some of these out, I think, before that person comes on board. That was my thought. That's my thought.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Thank you, Allison. Yeah, just one moment. And I'm happy to come in. I just want to be cognizant of the time. I know many of you are going to have to fall off here. I just want to acknowledge a couple of things here. And as chair, for obvious reason, I reserve my comments because I need to guide us in the meeting. I just take a point of personal privilege here and just acknowledge a couple of things. One, it's 1:30, so if you need to step aside, please do, but I need to kind of map us out for the rest of the week. On Wednesday, the chairs and vice chairs will come together for a virtual meeting, and we're going to bring together our problem statements, result statements, and then the recommendations as we currently have them. Ahead of us, we have the use of force, excessive force that we have not gone through, and then the recommendations related to the data committee. I want to just talk about the data committee, the way I'd like for us to approach it. There are 9 of them here. Many of them are already touched on, perhaps kind of within the training component of them. Many of them just kind of fall very concretely within the training component of them. I've kind of mapped them out already, and 3 of them can use very similar language as it relates to the evaluation of cost and effectiveness. And then it kind of has its own language in there. And I'm going to word them as such without changing the content of them. What if we agree to adopt all of them, and we kind of already preliminarily did that, then I would just pick them up and put them into their respective categories, and we will move them as such and vote on them as a holistic document. And that should be relatively quick. The biggest bulk of our time on Thursday, and yes, we will need to meet on Thursday, will be going through use of force, excessive force, and then going through this data committee piece. We will not go back and rehash any other section that we've already spoken about and discussed. After the completion of this section here and the data committee piece, we will send to you then the complete document with the problem statement and the intended result statement with the complete document, and then we will give you the date and time of your vote. And the vote needed will just be that you vote aye or nay, saying that you agree and that you vote in agreement with the document, so that if we have a majority, then we are in agreement that will be our submission. I appreciate what folks are saying about recommendation 3. I appreciate Ms. Lewis and Mr. Lewis's statement as well here, and Ms. Lucas's as well. I am in agreement too that we should not be waiting on this new chief, whoever he or she may be, to guide or lead us. They should not be deciding for us what we want Nashville to look like. We need to decide what Nashville looks like. And the militarization of our police force is something that I will not stand for. And I'm not speaking for the rest of Nashville, but I'm going to speak for Ashley and those around in my community to say we do not want that. And I see what this is standing for here. I see what the subcommittee was going for. I think that we should pick this up. We can pick this up on Thursday and talk a bit more about how do we get to something that we're comfortable with, and let's just take a vote about it. And if the majority of us are saying like there's just something we can't get behind in its current form, then fine, we'll move forward without it. But let's be clear about what it's saying, and let's not conflate what it's not saying in order to get past it. So I'm going to put to bed recommendation 3, and we'll come back to it. What I do want to acknowledge is recommendation 4, to make sure if we're comfortable with that, we can say that we're good on it. Recommendation 4 just says that community events should be held where residents are given information as to alternatives for crisis response. Is there any conversation about this one? It seemed very straightforward, but if we need to talk about that more, we can. Anyone want to talk more about that?
Very quickly, Madam Chair, I'm a little confused as to what it means, whether it means that the police department should hold these community events, or whether they should offer space for these events, or just clear that up for me as
what
to
the recommendation is. Okay,
yes,
no, that's a good question. I kind of read into it something different, but let's not read into it. Let's make sure everybody's on the right page, Councilman. So we'll pick it up with recommendation 3 and make sure everyone's on the same page. I'm gonna, if you see, green is my color this week, so I'm gonna pick it up with green and know exactly where we'll kick off on that date. Any closing remarks here for the good of the cause here before we close out? Because I do want to be thoughtful of people's workday and just general schedules here.
And in terms of scheduling, is our next meeting Thursday at the usual time of 6 p.m.?
That's correct. That's right. 6 p.m.
Unfortunately, the vice mayor's moved our council meeting to Thursday to accommodate the election. So I won't be in attendance. And we can talk about that offline.
Okay. Yes, sir. Well, I can reach out to you. And even if there's something you've got questions about, or you want to submit offline here.
I'm happy to do that offline. I don't want to take everybody else's time off, but yeah, I'll send you my thoughts. Thank you.
Okay. And we can talk about that. Thank you. If anyone else has a conflict separate, let me know. Thanks everyone. You can reach out to me, and please do practice your civic duty tomorrow if you haven't already. Thanks so much. Have a good one, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.